Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Tuesday. We're going up on a Tuesday for the next 2 hours here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And on our video streaming channels, our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, our Facebook page, WIBW News. However you're tuning in, wherever you're tuned in from, and whenever you're catching the program today, thanks so much for being a part of 580 Sports Talk. My name's Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuy will be along in a bit. Brendan Dworzinski is off today. 2 hours of 580 Sports Talk today. We're short timers all week. We've got short shows throughout this week here on 580 Sports Talk. We have another one today. We are done at 5 o'clock, so we may make way for Royals baseball, game 2 of a 3-game series in Cleveland. A 4-game series in Cleveland, excuse me. And the Royals will maybe try and get a hit before the 8th inning tonight. Wouldn't that be something? Let's see if they can get a hit before the 8th inning of tonight's game, because they couldn't do it last night. Had the no-hitter alert. Had a couple of no-hitter alerts last night. None of them came to fruition. Dodgers lost a no-hitter in the 9th inning for the second time in a week. And Slade Ciccone, I didn't even make fun of his name. I just mispronounced it. It's been a bit of a running gag on this show that I'll go through the lineup of a team that is inferior to the Royals and say, yeah, geez, who are these guys? And then whoever that guy is will go 3 for 4 with a double or score the go-ahead run or pitch 6 brilliant innings. I didn't even make fun of Slade Ciccone. I know who he is. Came over from Arizona in the Josh Naylor trade. I just got his name wrong. That's all. Apparently that was enough because he took a no-hitter into the 8th last night before Michael Massey broke it up. Royals lost big. I think 10-2 ended up being the final. I'll be real with you. I didn't exactly hang out for the duration of last night's contest. Let me just be clear about that. But we'll talk a little baseball later on this hour. Royals trying to bounce back from that loss, but the playoff hopes are dwindling for the boys in blue. It's a 5 o'clock pregame show tonight in the Royals Baseball Network, 5:40 first pitch from Progressive Field. So that's why we are off an hour earlier than usual today here on 580 Sports Talk. So only 2 hours to cram in 3 hours worth of content, and we'll do our best. We'll look at the Chiefs. We'll take an honest accounting of what exactly was it that didn't go right for the Chiefs on Friday in Brazil against the Chargers. Because there were some things that were fine to even very good, Patrick Mahomes being at the top of that list, which is, you know, kind of what you expect from your all-world 2-time MVP quarterback. But the stuff that went wrong, it was a lengthy list. How do the Chiefs address it? And can they address it in the time that they have to prepare for Sunday's visit from the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles? I've seen a lot of Chiefs fans just assuming that they're going to start 0-2, probably girding themselves for the possibility of disappointment. And I understand. Trust me, I have been there as a fan. I have been wired that way before, so I know where that's coming from. But the Eagles did not exactly look invincible in their season opener. If CeeDee Lamb could have caught a football, maybe they lose at home to Dallas in their opener. And then what are we saying about the Philadelphia Eagles coming to town? So this is not, by any stretch of the imagination, an impossible spot that the Chiefs find themselves in. It's going to be a hard game. The Eagles are very good, but I've seen a lot of people already saying, well, they're going to have to do like the Ravens last year and the Bengals a couple of years ago and the Texans in 2023, and they're going to have to get to the playoffs after starting 0-2, which it's really hard to do. Maybe, but I'm not putting this one in the L column right away. But we will look at what issues can be fixed, what can get better from week 1 to week 2 for the Chiefs, realistically speaking. So some Chiefs stuff to talk about today. We'll take a final audit of week 1 of the NFL season. Monday Night Football last night. Maybe you turned it off at halftime and said, boy, howdy, J.J. McCarthy, he stinks. And you turned off the TV at halftime, or maybe after he threw that pick 6, and you turned off the TV and you called it good. And then today you woke up and you said, wait a minute, the Vikings won and nobody's saying mean things about JJ McCarthy. Yeah, man, that game turned on a dime last night. Ended up being a very entertaining Monday night opener for the season. So we'll talk about which teams maybe made the biggest statements, which teams we're maybe seeing the biggest red flags for, and which games got a little bit more interesting on the week 2 schedule. We'll discuss that later on this hour. We got some Big 12 football to talk about today. Remember that song, 88 Lines About 44 Women? There was a song in the 80s. That's an old song. I'm dating myself with that reference. It was on some like I Love the 80s compilation CD that either my mom or my dad bought in like the mid 90s. You know, one of those things you get off an infomercial and it's got like Bananarama and Tony Basil doing M-I-C-K-E-Y, Mickey, You're So Fine, all that. Anyway, yeah, there's a song, 88 Lines About 44 Women. I do not have 88 lines, but I have 16 thoughts about 16 Big 12 football teams. K-State and KU have played 3 games. Everybody else has played 2, except for TCU. TCU got to kick their heels up this last week. They didn't play on a short week early in the season. They said, we're going to play that Monday night game, and we're going to take our bye. So TCU's only played 1 game. Most of the rest of the conference has played 2 games. Have some thoughts on every team in the Big 12, because there is plenty to discuss. And yes, that will include a stray thought on KU and K-State. And speaking of the Jayhawks, of course, it's a Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk, which means Jayhawk Weekly with our pal Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Michael will join us bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll get his thoughts on KU's loss to Mizzou, what the Jayhawks need to work on with their bye week coming up, and a whole lot more. That's coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. You are, as always, invited and encouraged to participate in the program. You hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-9429. You can also interact with us in the live chat on YouTube. If you're watching the program on our 580 Sports Talk YouTube stream live, there is a live chat window. You can interact with us. You can interact with each other. It's a great way to join and grow the 580 Sports Talk community and impact the show, make the show better. We appreciate you guys who are in the YouTube chat. See Vance and Mark H in early today. Andrew with a humble request that we do not talk any Royals baseball. I got something to say, something to talk about with the Royals. We're not going to belabor the point too much. There's but so much to be said about last night's game, which, again, I don't even remember what the final score was. I truly do not. It was bad. But just one point, one analogy I got to make with the Royals, and we'll get to that later on. John P. is in the chat. Paul K. is in the chat. Appreciate you guys jumping in today. Look forward to hearing from more of you. And if you're not subscribed yet to the YouTube channel, why not? Go subscribe to the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Doesn't cost you anything but a click, and it gets us closer to our next stretch goal of $900. $900. 900 subscribers. Would somebody like to give me $900? That would be wonderful. I got a small child at home. But no, our stretch goal is 900 subscribers. And when we get there, here's a hint. 580 Sports Talk karaoke. That's a hint. Just a hint of what's coming up when we get to our next stretch goal. And next week, the arm wrestling match that was promised when we got to 800 subscribers. Next week, Brendan and I are going to arm wrestle. That's been promised, and promises made, promises kept. We will deliver on that. We'll give you a date for that on tomorrow's show. Anywho, the Chiefs lost their season opener, and it wasn't particularly pretty, and it's always frustrating to lose the opener because it's the only game that you've seen of the 2025 Chiefs, and it wasn't very good. It makes you worry about the rest of the 16 regular season games, to say nothing of what ever postseason might or might not lie ahead for a team. It's a little like, I've always compared it to when you're at a basketball game and it's one of those where, I don't know how many teams do this. Not every team has this as an arena-wide tradition. But the idea of we don't sit until we score, everybody on your feet for the tip-off. and you don't sit down until you score, and then you go empty on the first couple of possessions, like, okay, get a mid-range jumper, that doesn't go. Next time down, ooh, that's a good looking three, that doesn't go. Next time down, maybe you turn it over. Maybe the fourth possession is another brick from the corner, and you're starting to think, man, am I ever going to get to sit down? Like, are we ever going to score? I would sure like to sit down. That's the anxiety that you feel, and it's multiplied because it's football, because you only get 17 bites at the apple in the regular season. But that anxiety is wholly understandable. That all we know of this Chiefs team is the product that they put out on the field on Friday night in Sao Paulo. And now, obviously, the Chiefs, I should say, have championship equity with us, or ought to. 3 straight AFC championships, 3 Super Bowls for a good chunk of this roster. That'll do that. So I think there is at least some confidence that this team is better than what they showed in that 27-21 loss to the Chargers, and is capable of bouncing back as soon as Sunday. But like I said, there's a lot of people out there that have already mentally put Sunday against the Eagles in the loss column. Because, oh man, if we struggle with the Charger defense, what are we going to do against Jalen Carter and the Eagles? Oh man, if we had trouble stopping Justin Herbert, what are we going to do about Jalen Hurts? I think this is a winnable game on Sunday for the Chiefs. I do. I still feel that way. I didn't see anything on Friday night that makes me believe that it is not a winnable game. But what were the issues? Maybe it makes it easier to identify, to put a name on the issues that the Chiefs had in that loss to the Chargers. And ultimately, I think the biggest one, Andy Reid may not give you a lot in his post-game press conferences, but if he mentions something, an issue by name, then it probably really stood out to him being on the sideline. You know, he's going to be one of those guys, you ask him about a position group, it could be plainly obvious that a player had a bad game, and Reid's response is going to be something like, well, I'd have to go back and look at the tape. Like, hey, Andy, your right tackle committed 4 penalties and gave up some pressures. Well, I have to look at the tape. But Andy Reid didn't have to look at the tape to know his team came out flat, came out without the requisite energy on Friday. And I don't know why that is. I really don't. And I'm sure that has been the root of some soul searching at One Arrowhead Drive as preparation moves to preparing for the Eagles this Sunday. If the Chiefs are lacking juice for their home opener and a Super Bowl rematch, a chance to get their lick back, a chance to avoid an 0-2 start, that would obviously be quite a big problem. You can probably understand why I don't think that's going to be an issue on Sunday. I do not think this will be a slow starting football team. I think they'll come out with more energy. I think they'll come out with more life. And I think they'll probably avoid getting one of their more important players to the game plan injured within the first 3 snaps of the night. That absolutely impacted the Chiefs' game plan and offense, and it took them about a quarter and a half to get things right once they lost Xavier Worthy. They're a little more prepared for that this time around, and we'll get back to that here in a little bit. That was an intangible issue for the Chiefs on Friday. What about the tangible stuff? There was a lot of disorganization defensively for the Chiefs. Matt Verderame brought this up. We had our NFL insider on the show yesterday from Sports Illustrated, SI.com. And what he posited made me think that it was sensible for the Chiefs to move on from Justin Reid and not give him a 3rd contract, just as it was sensible back when they moved on from Tyrann Mathieu and signed Justin Reid to get younger at that safety position. You'd like to be young. You'd like to have young legs back there. I understand moving on from Justin Reid. We're not doing any Monday morning quarterbacking on, boy, they should have never let him go. Long haul, I think Jaden Hicks is going to be a fine NFL player. I think he has a skill set that Justin Reid maybe did not, that ball hawking ability. We talked about this in the preseason. Brian Cook has been fairly reliable as a pro. He's dealt with some injuries, but has fought through those. I think ultimately the safeties for the Chiefs are going to be fine. But I thought it was clear in week one, and Matt Verderame made this point, that what Justin Reid brought to the table for the Chiefs was not so easily replicated, at least in the first meaningful game without him. And that was the ability to get everybody organized, get everybody in line. You know, Nick Bolton's got the green dot on the back of his helmet. So Nick Bolton relays the play calls, and that's one thing. But Justin Reid on the back end has that not quite 1,000-foot view, but he's got the deepest possible view. He can get the secondary in place. He can get linebackers in, out, up, down in their zones. And the Chiefs didn't have that presence. And maybe because it's just his second year in the NFL, Jaden Hicks isn't quite as good at that yet as Justin Reid. I think it's going to take some time for either Cook or Hicks, whoever ends up taking charge at that safety spot, to get to that level of understanding and have that authority that Reid did in the back of the secondary. That could take some time. Now, it's not as though there were like egregiously bad coverage, total coverage busts, right? Like the late touchdown to Quentin Johnson, that was Hicks getting beat on a blitz. Hicks getting beat one-on-one because the Chiefs blitzed and they left Hicks one-on-one there and the blitz didn't get home. Blitz got picked up. But there weren't any like egregious, wow, that guy's running around and there's nobody around him. It was just there were pockets in the zone. There were pockets in the middle of the field that were bigger than you're accustomed to seeing from a Chiefs defense. That goes to another thing. The difficulty the Chiefs had defending the middle of the field. I think that better organization on the back end helps to solve that problem. I also think that one of the roots of that problem is teams that can exploit Nick Bolton in coverage are going to do it. The teams that have that ability to exploit number 32 of the Chiefs in coverage are going to do it. And you're going to see some chunk plays allowed by the Chiefs when Nick Bolton is caught up in a bad matchup. It's the price you pay for having him on the field and for being more than sufficient against the run. Sometimes you pay a little bit of a price. And the price is occasionally he's going to get beaten coverage. But something else that I think will help the Chiefs pass defense, particularly out of the slot where it was not good. The Chiefs had difficulty covering slot receivers, out routes to the boundaries, those kinds of things. They got to get Trent McDuffie back in the slot. And as soon as Christian Fulton is at ramming speed, which that could be as soon as this week, but I would not imagine it would be much longer, even though he missed a ton of camp. He was playing catch up at the end of the preseason, played a bunch in that preseason finale, didn't play a whole lot against his former team. The more we see Christian Fulton and Jalen Watson on the outside, the more we get to see Trent McDuffie at what is his best position, and that's the slot. And that's going to help the Chiefs have fewer of those kinds of coverage errors that you saw with Shamari Connor playing the slot, which is something that he's not really equipped to do at the NFL level. Like, he can go out there and fake it. He knows the position, but he's not as good at it as anybody else that the Chiefs have on the roster, particularly McDuffie. So there's a fix there. It just is, it's health. Now, how soon can Christian Fulton be a guy who plays 90% of the defensive snaps? I think the biggest problem, though, for the defense, more so than anything that we've talked about, was probably the lack of four-man pass rush, which was genuinely surprising against a weakened Chargers offensive line. George Karlaftis had a good opening drive, had the sack, also had a personal foul penalty on the touchdown. But other than that, that was it. The only other Chief to have a sack in the game was a linebacker, Drew Tranquill, and those were both on design blitzes. Nothing from Chris Jones, nothing from Mike Dana, nothing from Charles Omenihu, nothing from any of the rookies, nothing from Jerry Tillery, just a zero. And not only a zero in the sack department, just not a lot of messy pockets for Justin Herbert. Not a lot of rushed throws. He had time, and he let it rip. The hope is that that's a bad day at the office, which, look, that can happen. Sometimes you don't have your best stuff. But you do wonder, Charles Omenihu, how much juice Mike Dana wasn't very good last year. I think he can be still in line for a bounce back, but that wasn't a very promising week one for Dana. I think Ashton Gelati can be really good. How soon can a rookie day 2 pick be impactful in the pass rush? How soon can Omar Norman-Lott be back to 100%, back to health, so that he can be a factor? He can rotate in and he can generate some of that interior pass rush that the Chiefs really didn't have anybody to generate. Again, I don't expect that to be a long-term issue. I just don't know that there is a short-term solution other than guys got to play better. And that will not be an easy feat on Sunday against that Eagles offensive line. The 2 points on offense that I thought were not particularly good for the Chiefs on Friday, number one was their lack of offensive balance. And some of that was just game state, right? Game script. You're behind. You're chasing the game throughout. That's going to necessitate throwing the ball more than maybe you're comfortable with. I actually thought in glimpses, Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt looked efficient. Pacheco in particular looked spry, had a couple of really nice runs. I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think anybody's under the impression that Isaiah Pacheco is a superstar, but can he be good enough to bring back an element to the Chiefs running game where teams have to respect it? Yeah, I think he can be, but he can't be that only carrying the ball 5 times. There have to be more carries for that group. There has to be more of a balance. And again, hard thing to do when you fall behind right away. And I get it. I'm not complaining about, oh, yeah, well, establish the run. You're down 2 scores and 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Go establish the run. No. But I do think that it will benefit the Chiefs offense. It will open up more of those deeper throws that Patrick Mahomes was able to make in that game if the running threat is more prevalent, more present for the Chiefs. The last one's an obvious one, and there's really nothing you can do about it. You're down your top 2 wide receivers. Would be shocked if Xavier Worthy plays on Sunday. We know Rashee Rice isn't going to. He's going to miss 5 more games with that suspension. There were yesterday, and including from Matt Verderam, our NFL insider, some calls for the Chiefs to maybe explore giving the Dolphins a call for their former wide receiver, the perpetually disgruntled Tyreek Hill. In case you have missed it, there have been some new allegations of domestic violence that have been levied against Mr. Hill in a divorce proceeding. Pro Football Talk reporting that late in the evening yesterday, I believe it was, probably sometime during Monday Night Football. After reading the allegations, not only do I not think the Chiefs should call on Tyreek Hill, I don't think anybody should. I think the Dolphins should cut him. One, what a surprise that a guy convicted for beating up a woman is still terrorizing and beating up women. What a shock that would be if that were still to be the case. And number 2, look, I don't condone this, but the story of professional sports is organizations willing to look past, willing to look beyond certain transgressions, particularly transgressions of the violence against women variety, if you are a one-of-one talent. And for many years, Tyreek Hill was a one-of-one talent. It's why the Chiefs look beyond his behavior. It's why the Dolphins look beyond his behavior when they traded for him and gave him that big contract. But Tyreek Hill's speed has fallen off a cliff. And if he's not the fastest guy in the field, he's not one-on-one anymore. And he's not worth anybody's time. I would see, if I were the Dolphins general manager, I'd see if I could find a sucker out there, but I wouldn't activate him, and I wouldn't want him wearing my uniform again. It's time to be done. He's never grown up. He's never changed his stripes. That's not something the Chiefs should want to bring back into their building. It's not something that anybody should want to bring into their building. And frankly, the only reason anybody ever wanted to bring it into the building in the first place was because of that speed. And it's gross and it's icky, but it's also the reality of competitive professional sports, is that sometimes we look past things. But the fact of the matter is, when you look past that kind of behavior, there's no incentive for the behavior to ever stop. It doesn't appear that it has for Tyreek Hill. And I am very, very worried what that's going to mean for the people who are close to Tyreek Hill, the women who are intimately involved, have children with Tyreek Hill, what that's going to mean for them when football's done. That's terrifying to think about. Anyway, on that uplifting note, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I've got some thoughts on NFL Week 1. Who's shown, who fizzled, and a couple of games that are even more interesting on paper than they were going into the season based on some things that we saw in week number 1. We'll talk some Royals. We'll talk Big 12 football. We've got Michael Swain of Fog.net joining us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We're short today. We're off at 5, so we're glad you're here early on this episode of 580 Sports Talk. .335 on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting rolling. In the YouTube comments regarding the thought that the Chiefs may want to add a veteran wide receiver with Rashee Rice on suspension and Xavier Worthy potentially headed for the shelf as well, Andrew says the Chiefs should call Amari Cooper. If Joe Flacco can get off the couch to play quarterback, a wide receiver could too. That's a fair point. I think the Chiefs are pretty optimistic that it's not going to be a long absence for Worthy, but they did add Hal Presley to the practice squad today. And that's a wide receiver. Obviously, he was on their initial practice squad. And then when they made some additions, Presley got cut from the practice squad. That signals to me that they're probably going to at least elevate somebody from the practice squad to the active roster, which is not a surprise. I mean, like I said, it would be stunning if Worthy could play on Sunday. The question is it enough to where putting him on IR is the sensible thing to do and having him miss at least the next 4 weeks, or if they think he can get back faster than that? So that'll be the tell, really. Is whether or not Worthy is put on IR. But if it had been the kind of thing where he was going to need surgery, we would already know about that. And that would have been long-term absence. So I think the Chiefs at least have dodged that bullet for now. If it's not a long-term absence for Xavier Worthy, then they don't need to call on anybody. They don't need to call on a veteran wide receiver just to plug a hole for 4 weeks. Regarding the rest of the National Football League, and we appreciate your comments on the YouTube live chat. You can also text the program, 785-272-9429. Week 1 is in the books. Bears-Vikings was wild last night because in the first half, Bears came out firing. Caleb Williams looked sharp. Bears had the lead. J.J. McCarthy looked miserable. He looked, in fact, like somebody who had not played in a real competitive football game since the national championship game in the college football playoff 2 seasons ago, which he was. And when he threw that interception on that out route to Nashawn Porter and put the Bears up 10 points, I just about turned the game off. Glad I didn't, because apparently that was all J.J. McCarthy needed to get serious, because after that, he was great. He was great. And got the ball to his best target, Justin Jefferson. That touchdown throw he made to Justin Jefferson, there's some arm talent there, man. Fit that in the middle of the field like that. Just let it rip. Have the confidence to do that after you've already thrown a pick six with your team trailing, to go back and thread that ball into that tight a window to your best guy. I don't know that I'm not ready to proclaim J.J. McCarthy the next great one. But I do think, and I saw somebody making this point, I think it was an Athletic football writer, Nick Baumgartner, making this point on Blue Sky, that J.J. McCarthy has like the memory of an elite baseball closer. Like a mistake or a bad throw doesn't mean anything to him. He shakes it off. He's got a short memory, and he believes he'll make the next one. That's a pretty valuable thing to have for a quarterback. And between that and the fact that the arm talent is there and the fact that he's in a Kevin O'Connell system, I think J.J. McCarthy's going to be fine. I do. I'm less sold on Caleb Williams than I was before he was drafted, for example. But you saw some throws. You saw him make some plays on the run. Like, you see the vision. It's impossible not to see the vision with him. It's just a matter of, like, can he play quarterback? Can he actually, like, get the nuances down? Man, it's easier said than done. I thought second half J.J. McCarthy was one of the most encouraging performances from week 1. Other teams that were really encouraging in week 1, we got to be honest, the Los Angeles Chargers. That was as good a game against a quality opponent in a spotlight as Justin Herbert has ever played. And Keenan Allen looked like a viable target again. He looked like he slimmed down a little bit and looked spry. It's early in the year, so, take that for what it's worth. It's only 1 week after all. But that was a very encouraging performance from the Chargers. They're going to be solid on defense with Jesse Minter calling the plays. Jesse Minter's going to be somebody's head coach next year. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. And they got a good performance out of a patchwork offensive line. So lots of credit to the Chargers for their week 1 performance. That was a win I don't think most people expected them to get. Certainly nobody around here thought they would get it. And they went and got it and were the better team for 60 minutes. And that raised some eyebrows. The Packers, it must be said, probably outside of the Chargers, were the team that had the most impressive performance. They exposed potential warts with the Lions. Jordan Love played very well. Even though they didn't run the ball effectively, the Lions said, we're going to make Jordan Love beat us. And Jordan Love beat him. He sure did. And defensively, they played really well. Green Bay comes out of that week looking like one of the teams to beat in the NFC. Again, we're only talking about 1 week here. But as far as teams who did the most to improve their perception based on the first 60 minutes of meaningful football this year, it was probably the Packers. I would say it was definitely the Packers in the NFC, and it was the Chargers in the AFC. As for the most troubling week 1 performances, I'm not going to say anything mean about Mike McDaniel. I'm certainly not going to call him nerd boy like Rex Ryan did on ESPN television earlier today. Very classy, Rex. Keep it classy. I'm not going to say anything bad about Mike McDaniel because he's from where I'm from. Him and I, as it turns out, did not grow up very far away. He went to a rival high school. I know people who knew him growing up. Big suburb. That's a very easy thing. You have friends who know other people and you don't know them. But I apparently went to high school and was friends with people who partied with Mike McDaniel and legendary high school partier, Mike McDaniel. He's talked openly about that. He's a different person than he used to be. But anyhow, he's from where I'm from. He's from my neck of the woods. Just like Brendan's never going to fully dump on JJ McCarthy because they're from the same neck of the woods. You got to ride for the people who are from where you're from. That being said, I hope Mike McDaniel's resume is up to date because he's not making it through the season in Miami. That is a tire fire. It's the worst secondary in football with no reasonable route to make it any better. Tua Tagovailoa is emphatically at this point not it. He's just not improving at all of the nuances of quarterbacking. And the offensive player you're paying the most money to, A, isn't good anymore, and B, doesn't want to be there anymore. And C, just got accused of roughing up his fiance or his ex-wife because it's a divorce proceeding. So he's got that going for him, which is not nice. It could be an all-time disaster in Miami. There's no way McDaniel survives it if it is, which I feel bad for him. I think he's a fairly likable guy. I think he's a very real person, which I think many coaches kind of become caricatures. I think Mike McDaniel's authenticity stands out in that world. But the Dolphins are going to be super bad. And I don't mean Jonah Hill. I mean super duper bad. That is going to be a really, really bad football team. You know who else wasn't very good in week 1? Bo Nix. Got to say it. That's not a Titans defense that's particularly well thought of, and Bo turned the ball over 3 times. Now, the Broncos still won the game because their defense is outstanding. And Nick still made some plays. He had a nice touchdown pass to Cortland Sutton. Broncos leaned on their run game to see them through, but they were in a 60-minute dogfight at home with the Titans. And that's not the makings of a Super Bowl contender, which some of the louder pro-Bronco, really pro-Sean Payton voices in the NFL media would like to have you believe that this team is a stealth Super Bowl contender, a dark horse in the AFC. Now with Bo Nix playing like that. And this has been my argument about Bo Nix. Like, they made the playoffs with him last year. So that's, a nice ceiling to have for a player. He's all right with his legs. He's accurate. He can make some plays rolling out of the pocket. He understood Sean Payton's offense and ran the Sean Payton stuff fairly well. But I don't think he's going to get any better. He's already in his mid-20s. There's no real room for growth here with Bo Nix. He is who he is. And who he was last year, yes, was a quarterback who took his team to the playoffs, but he was also a quarterback who didn't beat anybody good. And frequently played really poorly against good teams. Well, now we have him playing poorly against a bad team. There's film on Bo Nix now. If he does have a step forward in him, that is the root cause for a lot of Broncos-related optimism. I did not see any evidence of that in week 1. I saw the same old Bo Nix. Couple of games in week 2 that are a little more interesting based on what we saw in week 1. Thursday night football, we already knew was going to be good. Washington and Green Bay. Now it maybe feels like a Well, Spencer Dupuis has always felt this way, but maybe it now feels to you like it could be an NFC Championship game preview between the Manders and the Pack. Green Bay was awfully impressive. Now, how does that defense fare against a dual threat quarterback, multi-dimensional quarterback like Jaden Daniels? It's going to be a fascinating Thursday night game. Speaking of Denver, they play Indianapolis on Sunday. Was Indy good, or were the Dolphins just that bad? My lean is probably the latter. I think that Bronco defense is probably going to make Daniel Jones's life a living hell. But if that ends up being another mid-off between two quarterbacks who, like, I kind of think that's who Bo Nix is, like a slightly better Daniel Jones. Kind of think that's who he is. Then, that doesn't bode well, obviously, for Denver. In Indianapolis, nobody believes in them and their 1-0 start. They got a chance to make some believers out of people if they can move the ball in that Bronco defense. And I think Monday night's Chargers-Raiders game, it's for first place, right? First place in the AFC West on the line. But we'll see about the Raiders coming off of that win over New England where they weren't particularly impressive. And then the Chargers, how do they respond to getting that big win in Brazil? Were they just up for that game because it meant so much, because it was week one, because it was the Chiefs? Can they summon that same effort for the Raiders on the road on Monday night? We'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back. I've been putting it off, but I do have one quick point I want to make about the Royals. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Royals lost 10-2 last night to the Cleveland Guardians in the first of a four-game series at Progressive Field last night. Ryan Bergert, as it turned out, not quite 1985 Brett Saberhagen after all. Would be nice, but this is going to happen with guys who are mid-rotation to lower starters, and that's kind of Ryan Bergert's ceiling as a 25-year-old rookie. Every now and again, you're due for a dud. Royals are in a spot where they couldn't afford a dud, but that's what they got from Bergert, his first since joining the team. Not that it really mattered. He could have been just okay, and that wouldn't have sufficed because the Royals didn't get a hit until the eighth inning. They pushed across a couple of runs in the ninth. Good to see Jack Caglione getting involved offensively. Michael Massey's also swung a better bat, must be said, since he came back from his rehab assignment. But that was not a loss the Royals could afford to take. So they fall behind Cleveland in the standings. Their playoff odds now, according to Baseball Reference, and remember, they've been the more optimistic of the playoff odds most of the time, 6%. Fangraphs is actually more optimistic now on the Royals' chances of making the postseason, 6.2%. Right now, and I know I've used this analogy before, and I probably used it last year at this time when the Royals were hanging on for dear life, trying to reserve their spot in the playoffs with all the injuries they had. It sort of feels like the Royals are the Jamaican bobsled team on their final run in Cool Runnings, and you can see that screw is starting to rattle around, and you know it's going to pop off, and the bobsled's going to wreck, and you're just hoping that maybe it doesn't. Maybe that screw will hold just long enough to get to the bottom of the track. And right now, the loose screw is Cole Reagan's not back yet, Seth Lugo out, and Bobby Witt Jr., 3 straight days, not in the lineup. Don't know if it's going to be 4 straight days or not. Royals haven't released a lineup. You know they're putting him through the paces. They need him because you saw last night, offensively, they don't have nearly enough without him. Noah Cameron, Joey Cantillo, a couple of lefties going tonight. That's intentional by the Guardians, by the way. They pushed their rotation around. They didn't want to send a right-hander out, so they pushed Tanner Bybee back this week. So they're going with lefties. And why wouldn't you? Because the Royals, without Jonathan India and certainly with Bobby Witt Jr. having been on the shelf, they are extremely left-handed. Could be an advantage for the hard-throwing Cantillo of the Guardians. Noah Cameron, try and get that ERA back under 3 tonight. Pre-game at 5, first pitch, 5:40 here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. We'll wrap up the 3 o'clock hour of this show and set up the second and final hour right after this. The YouTube chat is now discussing their favorite John Candy movies after I brought up Cool Runnings in the last segment. A lot of good ones. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, Spaceballs. Shout out to Andrew for mentioning his incredible cameo in Home Alone. You know another movie he's got a good cameo in that's a sports movie? Rookie of the Year. The one where the kid breaks his arm and you throw 100 miles an hour and gets signed by the Cubs. Remember that one? Man, I say this a lot. Probably not on the radio, but I've said this a lot. I grew up at a really good time for like kids sports movies. When was the last good kids sports movie for kids? Like for children. Man, when I was growing up, we had the Mighty Ducks. We got Space Jam. We got Little Big League. Angels in the Outfield. Rookie of the Year. You kidding me? So many. The Sandlot. That was all like when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Oh, man, all those movies are still good. They still hold up. John Candy was the Cubs announcer in Rookie of the Year. He's really good in that movie. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, it's our final hour of the day as we make way early for Royals baseball. 16 thoughts about 16 Big 12 teams. Plus, what is wrong with you in Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk. It's our final hour of this shortened program today here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis with you. We are breaking away at 5 for Royals baseball. First pitch at 5:40, so pregame coverage from Cleveland on the Royals Baseball Network starting at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. We've got a lot to get to in this second and final hour of today's show. 16 thoughts about 16 Big 12 football teams here in the very early stages of the season. We'll also have another round of What Is Wrong With You. And at the bottom of this hour, Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us. And it's Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll talk all things KU with Michael. But we do have some breaking news that we want to get to. We were talking a little bit about the Royals and the delay in getting their lineup out today. That was obviously and transparently to see if they could get Bobby Witt Jr. back into it. They can, and they have. Bobby Witt Jr. returns to the Royals lineup tonight after missing the last 3 games with that back injury. Also back in the Royals lineup tonight, Jonathan India, reinstated from the injured list. He'll DH and bat 7th tonight. That's good news. It's less good that the person he is replacing on the 26-man roster is Michael Wacha, who's been placed on the 7-day concussion injured list relative to yesterday. Now, nobody I can find seems to know when exactly he was concussed, but apparently he's been concussed. And so he is on the concussion injured list. And
he was supposed to start tomorrow.
Yeah, he was supposed to start tomorrow. Very hard to believe that that's going to happen at this stage, and makes you wonder if the Royals will try and ham and egg it with the bullpen game. Luinder Avila, Jonathan Bolin, Daniel Lynch, multi-inning guys, and just see where it goes. Either way, it becomes paramount importance that the Royals get some length from Noah Cameron tonight in his start. The lineup for the Royals will be, as a result of the returns of both Bobby Witt Jr. and Jonathan India, more appropriately right-handed against the left-handed starter Joey Cantillo. Michael Garcia will lead off at third base, followed by Witt at short, Pasquantino at first, Perez behind the plate. You know those 4. Randall Grichuk will be in left field tonight, batting 5th. Then Jack Caglione in left field, one of 3 lefties in the lineup, will bat 6th. He's been stinging the ball since he came back. Hasn't always gotten the results, which was kind of the story of his first cameo with the Royals this season. A lot of loud outs, but loud contact will eventually lead to good things. Jonathan India is DHing and batting 7th. Nick Lofton's at second base. Kyle Isbell, the third of the 3 lefties in the lineup tonight, in center field, batting 9th. So Royals and Guardians tonight, 5 o'clock pregame, 5:40 first pitch here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. We also have this breaking news from the National Football League. Jalen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles has been suspended a game for his act of unsportsmanlike conduct in last Thursday's game against the Dallas Cowboys. Before anybody gets too excited, let me read the next line of the press release. Because Carter was disqualified before participating in a single play, the suspension is considered to have been served in week 1, and he will forfeit his game check.
Yeah, that's so Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero were essentially saying that's what it was equal to on Sunday and yesterday. So, or I guess Friday of last week. So I guess that's expected, is that they consider that a suspension. So
yeah, you don't usually see
retroactive,
like time served. Like that's what this is, right? You've been sentenced to time served. So he missed the whole game. So if he had played a play, like if there had been one play from scrimmage and he'd spit on Dak Prescott, would that have meant his suspension would have had to have been for week 2 because he participated in the game?
Or was it because, or would it not be because he only participated in 0.01% of the game?
Or are the powers that be in the NFL wanting to make sure the Eagles are not shorthanded going against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well,
on
look,
Sunday?
if they
it's
were
a conspiracy from the league office. They hate the Chiefs. Everybody knows this. They are biased against the Chiefs. It's the most open secret. Everybody knows. They've been talking about it for years. The NFL has it out for the Chiefs. The NFL's biased against the Chiefs. Referees are biased against the Chiefs. Everybody knows it. Everybody says it. You're hearing it more and more and very, very strongly that the NFL's bias against the Chiefs is what has led to this, as far as I know, unprecedented ruling that a player who gets ejected before a play from scrimmage is considered to have served their 1-game suspension for an unsportsmanlike act.
I mean, to me, it makes sense. I don't know about you, but to me, it makes sense.
I mean, like, I understand it. It's interesting that this is a new precedent. Like that's where it is surprising to me. It won't be surprising the next time it happens because now there's precedent. But like, how often do you see somebody spit on somebody before they run a play from scrimmage? How often does this kind of thing come up? So
also, in his contract, if he gets suspended for any amount of time, then he would forfeit his guarantees or signing bonus. But the Eagles have agreed to not forfeit his guarantees in his contract or his signing bonus. So they agreed with they made an agreement with old Drew Rosenhaus.
So Carter forfeits his week 1 paycheck and he gets to play week 2 against the Chiefs. So a couple of breaking news notes of interest. No headline segment today, obviously, because we're off early, but wanted to get that information disseminated to you fine listeners. You can react to that in the YouTube chat, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, if you're watching the program on our YouTube stream. You can also hit us up on the text line, 272-9429. I almost gave out my office number there for a second. My brain broke. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. 785.
You too can find his office number though somewhere probably.
Yeah, it's out there. I got business cards. They need to be updated here in about a week, but I got business cards.
It's okay. You've gotten that hate voicemail before. We all have.
Yeah, everybody has. It's part of working into the business. But the text line 785-272-9429 is the text line number. I wanted to get to this Big 12 football segment because we've all decided, we haven't all decided, but a lot of people have decided that what Kansas State has been through the first 3 games of this college football season is who they are. And they might be right. I mean, they might stink. K-State might just not be a very good football team. They might end up this year's Oklahoma State in the Big 12 or this year's Utah, where they're just not any good, and it's just a season's worth of free fall and potentially program-altering disaster for Kansas State. Or maybe they've just been on the wrong side of 2 one-score games and on the right side of a third, and when they get healthy and a little more acclimated, they can play some better football and they can still pick up some good wins in the final 9 games of their regular season. That's certainly doesn't feel like the more likely possibility, but it still exists as a possibility. But it got me to thinking, what else do we think we know, or what else have we tried to learn about the Big 12 through their first 3 weeks or 2 weeks plus week 0? So I had 16 thoughts on 16 teams through the first handful of games. And I thought, okay, well, KU and K-State, they're already a quarter of the way through their schedule. Everybody else has played 2 games. Not true. TCU's only played 1 game. They were off this last week. They took a week 2 bye. They beat the life out of Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels in front of Michael Jordan and Mia Hamm and God and everybody on national TV, and then said, we're taking a week off. We'll see you when we play Abilene Christian.
You forgot Randy Moss.
Oh yeah, Randy Moss was there too. A lot of famous people were there. Not quite the level. I shouldn't say that because Michael Jordan outweighs anybody who ever showed up to a CU game when Dion had it really pop in that first year, when they had Michael Irvin on the sideline acting like he actually played with like Cordell Stewart at Colorado instead of playing at the U. The star power definitely outdone by MJ, but yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. And then TCU got a week off, so we only have 1 sample for TCU. But based on the samples that we have for everybody else in the Big 12, what do we think? Without further ado, 16 thoughts on 16 Big 12 teams. For KU, we'll start there because we got Jayhawk Weekly today. It's Tuesday. We're talking to Michael Swain here in about 20 minutes or so. I think KU should be able to start 3-0 in league play. I think league play lines up really nicely for Kansas. Coming out of the bye, they got West Virginia, about whom more in a bit. Cincinnati at home, very beatable team in Lawrence. And then they go to UCF, who I think Kansas should be able to handle as well. Hopefully those games will give their back seven on defense a little time to grow and mature and improve, because in the second half of the season, they faced Baron Morton, they faced Avery Johnson, they faced Rocco Beck, and they faced Evan Dampier. It will be a much harder second half of the season. But if they can get to it at 5-1, I think they're going to be in really good shape. And there's no reason they shouldn't. Based on what we've seen, yeah, Mizzou moved the ball against them at will. That was a really good offensive front. Probably the best defense KU will see all season. I think they've got a chance with the bye to reset, to get healthier. And I think a 3-0 start in league play is not only possible, I think it is likely with those first three games. K-State. Here's my big question about K-State. We picked through that loss to Army yesterday. We'll talk about it more with Tim Fitzgerald on tomorrow's program when Fitz joins us for the Wildcat wrap-up. But my big question for K-State right now is, who are the guys on that team for whom this is not acceptable? You got to figure out who the guys on the team are that would rather, this is an exaggeration, obviously, for dramatic effect, but the guys who would rather die than lose another football game. This has not seemed to be a team that has at any point attacked a game this season with the appropriate urgency. And that's different from playing hard. I don't think that K-State has not played hard or tried hard or wanted to win, but there is wanting to win and needing to win. Iowa State has had a need to win in all of their games. Kansas State, even from going back to Big 12 media days, hearing Chris Kleiman tell me on Radio Row, we're not going to let Iowa State define our season. Iowa State played like that game was going to define their season, and so far it has. And so far it has for K-State too, but not in a good way. So where is that urgency going to come from? Who are the guys who are going to grab this team by the scruff of the neck? Because that has not previously been Avery Johnson's personality as a leader. We've discussed that on the show as well. Somebody's got to get in somebody's face and say, we are not losing any more of these one-score football games. We are not going to be unable to get off the field on a fourth down and short for an entire 60 minutes of football. We're going to get the stop. We're going to make the play. We're going to be on the right side of this next one. Who are those guys? Where is the toughness? Where is the dog in this K-State team? The answer to that question will determine really where their season goes from here. So those are the local teams. How about the rest of the league? We'll go in alphabetical order. Arizona is who K-State plays Friday night. It's a late kick, I believe, 8 o'clock Central Time. You'll be able to catch it over on our sister station, the Big 94.5 Country, on Friday night. We'll have Royals baseball here on 580. Arizona is 2-0. They have bludgeoned both of their opponents. They beat up Hawaii, and then they stomped Weber State this last Saturday. Routine wins over overmatched teams, which is kind of the bare minimum for a Power 4 team. But Arizona's been super sloppy in the process. 18 penalties in 2 weeks. A lot of sloppiness, lack of discipline. Noah Fafita wasn't even really good against Hawaii. They just scored 40 points because Hawaii's bad. So what it might come down to in Tucson on Friday night, who cleans up the sloppiness? Who is the least sloppy? Who is the least mistake prone? Who is the least penalty prone? I still want to bet on that being K-State, but man, the evidence is mounting that might not be who that team is. But that's going to, I think, define Friday night's game between those two teams. Arizona State, I'm not giving up on them as a Big 12 contender, even though they lost to Mississippi State on Saturday. Bad loss, bad end game. Couldn't punch it in at the 1 yard line, had to settle for the short field goal, and then gave up the one play you couldn't give up to lose that game at the end. But I am not giving up on Arizona State as a Big 12 contender. If you remember last year, they barely beat Mississippi State at home, and that was a worse Mississippi State team than this year's team projects to be. So I am not going to write off the Sun Devils, but certainly their perception as possible at-large playoff team took potentially a fatal hit with that loss in Starkville. Baylor, Sawyer Robertson, best quarterback in the conference. Is that an overreaction? What we've seen first 2 weeks, Spencer? Am I overreacting if I say Sawyer Robertson's the best quarterback in the conference?
No, I think he's legit put himself at the front facingness of the Big 12 when it comes to quarterbacks because of how he's gone out there and proved that he belongs.
Bonkers number.
Yeah.
Over 400 yards in each of his first 2 games.
That's hey, look, I am legit. Stop throwing down, thinking I'm not.
It's also, I have to do this because my defense can't stop a nosebleed. That's the bigger problem for Baylor. Like their offense is going to score. Can they stop anybody? Because they couldn't stop Auburn. They had trouble stopping SMU. How are they going to fare against some of the better quarterbacks, some of the better offenses in the Big 12? BYU, 2 games, 2 blowouts. I watched a little bit of their game against Stanford. I didn't watch it all. I watched a little bit of it. I watched enough to walk away from that feeling like, even though he's a freshman, and even though he's got that unsightly quarterback jersey number of 47, Bear Bachmeier can spin it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to miss a beat without Jake Retzlaff. I think they'll be about as good this year as they would have been without Jake Retzlaff. They appear to have closed the door, closed the book on that whole saga and moved forward just fine. If there are any lingering effects to off-season controversy and the loss of your starting quarterback pretty late in the process, gearing up for the season, I haven't sensed that. I think BYU is going to be A-okay. Cincinnati. They looked more like the team I thought they were going to be against Bowling Green in their second game. They stretched the field vertically. They went into the portal for a bunch of wide receivers, a big deal tight end, and they had a big deal tight end on hand in Joe Royer. And against Nebraska, they just threw everything to the boundary. They treated Brendan Sorsby like a check down artist. Against Bowling Green, they were more willing to stretch the field. But that's Bowling Green.
Yeah.
What is the real Cincinnati offense? Are they going to let Brendan Sorsby take those kinds of chances, or are they going to turtle up when they start playing better teams again? My guess, given Scott Satterfield's track record and the coach I believe him to be, that it'll probably be closer to the latter than the former. Colorado, the Caden Salter era already over. The Juju Lewis era maybe never is going to get even a chance to begin. Nope. Because Colorado's new starting quarterback is a gentleman named Ryan Staub. And if you know who that is, you must follow Colorado football.
Yeah.
3-star recruit out of California. The kind of kid that Colorado has always had on their roster. Like 3-star quarterback recruit from California. That could have been a John Embry recruit, a Mike McIntyre recruit, a Dan Hawkins recruit. That could have been a recruit at any stage of Colorado football in the bad years for the last 20. And Deion Sanders has decided he's a better option than both his prize 5-star high school true freshman and his prize portal Louis luggage from Liberty, Caden Salter. If Ryan Staub's the best guy to run your offense, then maybe the problem is with who's coaching your offense.
Bingo.
I think this is a Pat Shurmur problem, and I don't know how Colorado solves it. Houston plays Colorado on Saturday. I think they're going to beat them. That's my thought on Houston. I think they're going to beat Colorado. And I think that Deion's going to change quarterbacks again. And I think that Deion's going to go to the podium. Coach Prime is going to go to the podium. And somebody's going to ask him who his starting quarterback is going to be for the next game. And Coach Prime is going to look right in the camera and say, depends. And he's going to wink. And somebody's going to walk up with a big old sack of cash and hand it to him for the product placement. Iowa State. If you've learned anything from this Iowa State team, you know what they say about getting in a mud fight with a pig, why you shouldn't do it? It's the same logic about getting into a close game with Iowa State. You don't play a close game with the Cyclones for the same reason you don't get in a mud fight with a pig. They like it, and all you get is dirty.
Yeah.
Iowa State is happy to fight you in the mud and play an ugly football game and drag it down and bog it down. They don't do pretty, and that's just fine with them. They know exactly who the hell they are, and that's why they're 3-0. Oklahoma State. My theory is that everybody's been sick to death of the Mike Gundy era for the better part of the last decade, but Oklahoma State couldn't figure out how to move on because of the full understanding that they can't really do better, that they weren't going to do better than Mike Gundy. And My other theory is that isn't going to be a problem anymore come this November. There was some reporting today out of the Tulsa World that the boosters are already ready. Like they have a succession plan in place. And the succession plan is one of Gundy's former players, Zach Robinson, who is currently the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, their season ends about a month after Oklahoma State's season is going to end at the end of November. But the reporting is that's who the boosters want. They want Zach Robinson to be the next head coach. I don't know if it's going to be him. I just know that whoever's going to be walking on the sideline in 2026 for the Cowboys, well, he won't have as good a hair as the guy who'd been doing it for all the years before. TCU only played one game. It was a good one. I fully respect that Sonny Dykes wasn't going to let himself get punked by 2 celebrity coaches in 3 years. Once was enough. Coach Prime got him. He wasn't going to let Bill Belichick get one over on him either. They stomped a mud hole in those boys. It's only one game, but it made me a lot more interested in what TCU does from here. Texas Tech, they are winning what are in the parlance of professional wrestling are called squash matches, where you bring out the star and then they wrestle like the Brooklyn Brawler or like some local dude wearing a mask. And the match is over in 10 seconds. Like when Goldberg had the streak in WCW. That's what Texas Tech has done. 2 overmatched opponents, and Texas Tech has done exactly what they were supposed to do. I think you better bring a calculator, an abacus, whatever, extra fingers to Tech at Utah in 2 weeks, because that might break the scoreboard. UCF, they get to cool their heels this week. They're off. They had a win. They beat North Carolina A&T, I think.
Without
your boy Cam Fancher,
who is actually injured.
Yeah, he got hurt.
He didn't get benched. He got injured.
They get to take a run at the Fighting Belichicks this weekend, or in 2 weeks. So that'll be the next time we see the Scott Frost gang. Utah, they look like a Kyle Whittingham team again, and all it took was parting from a longtime friend of his at offensive coordinator and rethinking that side of the ball. Chris Kleiman, would you consider ever doing such a thing yourself? Thinking about it. And lastly, West Virginia. I don't have enough expertise on the matter. Thankfully, someone in the box does. Spencer, can you give us a thought on the West Virginia Mountaineers?
Embarrassing. Embarrassing loss at Ohio in Athens, Ohio. But you add insult to injury. Jaheim White, their star running back, gone for the year with a knee injury.
That's brutal.
One of their leading wide receivers, Jaden Bray, he's going to be out some time with an injury. I don't think Nico Marchiol is a Big 12 starting quarterback. I don't think so.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be a long year. Going to be year 0.
Hard edge. That's the term that Rich Rod has. And I think some West Virginia fans were just delusional this year to start the year. They think that it could be a playoff team for them. It could be a conference winning team, a conference championship competing team.
That was obviously nuts.
That's nuts. I will say it should be an interesting game this weekend. Pitt comes in 2-0 in the backyard brawl.
Oh, yeah.
But they get up for the backyard brawl.
Yes, they do.
So you could come off a loss to Ohio, losing your best players, and you could still win it in the backyard brawl. Because Pitt played really nobody. They played Central Michigan, and I don't even know who the other team was. But, yeah, I think West Virginia, they're not going to compete in the Big 12 well, but they could win the backyard brawl.
Those are 16 thoughts on 16 Big 12 football teams. We'll get some more Jayhawks thoughts with Michael Swain in a bit. First, what is wrong with you after this time out on 580 Sports Talk? So what is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? Our current weekly champion, the gentleman who was wearing an inflatable puppy costume and got in a fight with a child and strangled him, choked him out. Again, a juvenile. So not like a 8-year-old, we assume. Probably more like a 15, 16-year-old. But still, 46-year-old, that's old enough to know better and maybe not take a run at a child. My story today, we call it the Fragrant Felons. Go to Santa Barbara County. It's where my mom's from, Goleta, California. Santa Barbara County Sheriff's deputies on Friday arrested 3 men suspected of stealing nearly $2,000 of perfume from an Ulta Beauty. They did it at 2 p.m. on a Friday in the Camino Real marketplace. I know exactly where that is. I used to vacation there every summer as a kid. My grandparents lived there. My mom grew up there. The suspects had fled the store with stolen cologne and perfume in a red sedan headed toward Highway 101. Deputies spotted the car and pulled it over. They knew they had the right car because when they got to the window, the car reeked of perfume and cologne. Deputies recovered approximately $1,900 worth of perfume and cologne. The 3 suspects were booked into jail for felony organized retail theft. Yep. I don't know how you hide the smell of $2,000 in cologne and perfume.
Yeah. That's hard to hide.
I think it's pretty unmistakable. They when they knew, they got up to the window and like, oh, yep, this is the right one. Yep. Call off the bolo. We got him. Your story, Spencer.
We're going to go to Daytona Beach, Florida. Florida man was arrested on Monday after authorities said he showed up for a nursing job interview using a stolen identity. Detectives arrested 55-year-old Joseph Kinney of Lake Mary on Monday after he reportedly showed up for a nursing job interview using a stolen identity. Kinney's Florida nursing license was revoked in 2022, yet he allegedly used another person's credentials to apply for 10 to 15 nursing positions across Central Florida. He was briefly employed at 2 facilities in Seminole and Orange counties before authorities intervened. The Volusia Seminole Orange Sheriff's Office led the investigation with assistance from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services of Office of the Inspector General, so federal level here. He now faces 2 counts of practicing healthcare without a license. It remains unclear why he did whether he posed any risk to patients and why he did this. He had previously held nursing license in Alabama, California, and Florida. According to the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, his records included past disciplinary actions for drug diversions, DUI, providing false information, and other unprofessional conduct. The arrest followed a nurse hiring manager raising concerns about suspicious applications, which prompted detectives to set up a controlled job interview. So it was a sting operation.
Wow. And it got a guy.
Yeah. He faces 2 counts of practicing healthcare without a license. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General assisted in the arrest and the ongoing investigation.
So, yeah, just really wanted a nursing job and played his way out of the league with some disciplinary actions and thought maybe he'd get back in it under a different name.
10 to 15 job apps.
Guys, shoot your shot. I'm going with the Fragrant Felons, and I'm going to have them knocking off our guy in the puppy suit on account of he was a sex offender, and it gets a little gross if you follow that thread. Yep, the Fragrant Felons are going to be our weekly champs, or not our champs for now, moving forward this week on What Is Wrong With You. We'll see if somebody can take him down on tomorrow's edition of What Is Wrong With You. Coming up next on 580 Sports Talk, Michael Swain of Fog.net and 24/7 Sports joins us for Jayhawk Weekly. We're talking KU next on the program. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Michael joins us every Tuesday at this time on the program for a segment we call Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, KU loses the border war, and I got to say, I think you kind of hit it right on the head with your evaluation of what this game was going to be. In the end, it was the advantages in the trenches for Mizzou on both sides of the ball that kind of told the tale, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And man, for the first the first quarter took an hour. But so for the first hour of the game, it looked like it was going to be kind of a smash and grab performance for KU, where you use a defensive touchdown, like some explosive plays. All of a sudden, KU's up 21-6. But then, Missouri just slowly kind of wore down KU. And look, I'm probably maybe even a little higher on the overall performance than maybe some others. I think you can look at this game and you see some of the flashes from KU's defensive front and what they're able to do. You saw some of the flashes from the linebackers, and you saw some explosive plays from KU. So it's one of those games where obviously the result didn't go KU's way, and I think there's stuff that KU needs to get better at. Right? You think about third down, you think about defensively, can you make big plays in high leverage moments late in the game? Offensively, can you keep a drive together? Can you not turn the ball over? But I think just broadly, there are some positives that KU can take. But, at the end of the day, right, football is results business. Missouri gets the win and gets the bragging rights for a year. But I think for KU, it's not one of those where you leave and say, man, just KU was completely outclassed in every facet of the game for 60 minutes. And it's not more victory, but this is a game that is a measuring stick for KU, right? There aren't teams that are as talented as Missouri in the Big 12. And so the fact that KU goes on the road and puts together a performance that keeps them in the game for 4 quarters, right? I think there's stuff to be encouraged there when you projected ahead to Big 12 play.
What were you maybe most encouraged by? Something that you saw in that game that maybe held up or performed better than you expected that it might against an SEC opponent?
Yeah, I think just KU's kind of front six, honestly. At the end of the day, if you look at the numbers right now, the rushing yards are going to be ugly. But you take away a run at the end of the game when KU's defense is gassed, and then you really look at the end of the first half when KU played way too conservative on that drive. You take away those 2 rushing attempts, and all of a sudden it's a completely different game in terms of the yards per carry number and some of the advanced metrics. So I think KU's defensive line and linebackers did some really good stuff. They really kept Bo Prabula from being able to do much with his legs. And we've seen mobile quarterbacks just kill KU over the years. And the fact that, it wasn't a quarterback killing KU on Saturday is a sign of growth. So I think from that perspective, what that unit or those 2 units showed me, I'm really encouraged going into Big 12 play, because Missouri's offensive line is not the best KU's going to play all year. I think Utah is going to be up there, but I will say that, in terms of the running back talent they had and in terms of just the physicality that their offensive line played with, right, it's going to be up there among the toughest that KU faces. And the fact that I think you saw some of those flashes, you saw players make plays, and you need that in the Big 12. You need guys that can go out and make splash plays, and I think you saw some of that.
Michael Swain of Fog.net is our guest. This is Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Some creative officiating in the game on Saturday, and those officials have been rewarded for their creativity with a week off.
Yeah, well, what's funny is so when that release came out, I thought they were going to get dinged for, a batted pass or a ghost face mask, that weren't called, but, or were called that maybe shouldn't have been called in terms of the face mask. But for the punt, I was so confused. I had to go back and watch the clip of the game again to be like, did they really let them punt after that? So that was such a weird thing. And I don't really understand why they thought that was okay. Because, if you missed it, Eli Drinkwitz asked the officials, or he claims he asked the officials if they could punt, and the officials said yes. So it's like, it's not like the officials just missed it. They okayed it, which is just such a weird deal. So, yeah, they get a weekend off and some public shame. Not the end of the world, but still very interesting.
So KU moving forward, they have the bye this week, and I think this bye comes at a really good time, not just because it's a dividing line between now and the start of Big 12 play, but it strikes me that this team needs to get healthy. It was a welcome and pleasant surprise to get Bengali Kamara back on the field as fast as they did, but he could certainly use a week to recover. And there are a lot of other guys who've been dinged and dented and who maybe missed time the first 3 weeks that it feels like KU could really, really benefit from a bye being right now.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, KU didn't start the season on the right foot in terms of health. You can look at Joe Sept or, Jason Gilliam, Gage Keys not being able to play. And now you go to the Missouri game and, if you're there like I was and you're on the sideline, well, you see Gage Keys warming up, you see Joe Sept warming up. Now, neither of those guys had their helmets during the game, so that means that they were probably only there for an emergency situation. But getting those guys a week of rest and the fact that they were able to travel and do some stuff, right, shows that they're getting close. And so if all of a sudden you can get a Gage Keys back healthy, you can get a Joe Sept healthy, Jason Gilliam get another week of practice and get healthier. Cam Pickett's one that quietly has kind of been banged up, right? He got injured at the end of the first half against Fresno State and has played limited snaps since. And look, when he's been on the field, he's been targeted, which indicates to me that he is Jalen Daniels' kind of go-to receiver. So you've been missing the guy that's made the most plays for you offensively. So a week like this is so huge. And then you can get even into the fact that, you've got players like Lyric Rawls who played every single snap against Missouri on defense, right? 80-plus snaps without a break. You've got Jalen Todd playing over 75% of the snaps. Trey Lathan playing, I think, over 75% of the snaps. Like, you got guys that need a little bit of a break too. So it's one of those where bye weeks this early in the season are kind of weird, but the fact that KU played 3 games and they're coming off a physical game against Missouri, I think it's kind of one of those where it's kind of okay that KU is a bye week right now, because I think it fits, it just fits the flow of the season now, where KU can kind of rest, recuperate, get reset for Big 12 play. Then they get kind of 5 games of Big 12 play before a bye week, I believe it is. And then, another set of games before a bye week and then home stretch. So I think the way these bye weeks flow, it's not as choppy as maybe it could have been. So I think KU in that regard is probably pretty happy they have a bye this week.
Our guest is Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. He joined us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. So, Michael, we've seen 3 games. We've seen the non-conference games that turned out, I think, how maybe a lot of people expected it might. Wins over Fresno State and Wagner, a loss on the road to Mizzou. Given the body of work for the first 3 games, has Kansas been about to your expectations? Again, broadly speaking, have they maybe exceeded expectations, or are they maybe lagging behind in some ways?
I think they're probably right on course for what I thought. I had KU going 2-1, losing Missouri on the road. I've got them going 8-4 over the course of the season. I think I am a little more encouraged by what I've seen from the defensive front. I think KU has to get better in the secondary with their coverage, right? They've been carved up over the middle to start the year. Think about Fresno State, right? The amount of third down conversions over the middle of the field that they had. Think about Missouri, right? Some of the big time plays they had over the middle of the field. KU's got to shore that up. But I think defensively, it's been about what I expected. I think they're, again, front 6, maybe a little better. Secondary, maybe a little bit worse. You go offensively, right? Jalen's been good. I think the tight ends have been good. The receivers have been good when healthy. I think it comes down to the running backs and offensive line being better. And I think we've seen for KU offensive line development is something that's happened every single season. So I think you have faith that over the course of the next, 2 months that unit's going to get better and better. So yeah, overall, I think if you're going to say, non-conference play, I'd give KU like a B. I think it was solid, a convincing win over a Fresno State team. That's a win that's going to look better, I think, over the course of the season, because that Fresno State team, I think, is going to make a little bit of noise. And so you've got that, and obviously then you've got a somewhat competitive game or pretty competitive game at Missouri. And so I think overall it's been about what I expected, but I think there's still some stuff that KU can improve, and I'm really interested to see how kind of the next 2 games, maybe even 3 games go for KU, playing West Virginia at home, playing Cincinnati at home, then going to the road to play UCF. Like, those are 3 games that I think on paper you look at and say KU should win, but on paper is not the same as actually doing it. So I think it's going to make for a next kind of interesting next month.
I'm curious if you'll land on either of the names I'm thinking of as a possible answer to this question, but which player for you, for Kansas, through the first 3 weeks, which individual effort has been the most pleasant surprise?
Well, look, I think Trey Lathan's consistency has been huge for KU. I think, man, like, watching the linebacker play KU's had over the last couple of years, it's been really rough. And to watch someone be as consistent as Trey has been for KU over the first 3 games is a really pleasant surprise. I think, I'm someone that's always been really high on a guy like Kamara, been banging that drum for a while. So I'm not necessarily, saying, man, he's someone that really impressed me, because I expected stuff like this from him. Like, he's a good player. And I think the other one, Cam Pickett has been really good when healthy. I think he's someone that throughout the course of camp got kind of buzz as KU's best wide receiver, and I think he's been shown that when healthy. I also think Deshaun Hanukkah has been very solid through non-conference play, and is offering KU that receiving threat in addition to, I think, just his overall ability, helping out with some pass pro stuff and run game blocking. So I think those are kind of some of the guys, Trey and Deshaun are probably the biggest two that have been, I'd say, pleasant surprises, or guys that maybe you thought, okay, hey, they'll be solid, and they've come out and been, I think, they're solid.
I was going to throw out two names. You've mentioned the front six and how well they've held up through the first 3 games. I was going to mention a couple of guys who came into the season maybe thought to be depth pieces, but are showing that they can be more than that and really adding to the depth of this group on the defensive line. That's Keenan Caldwell and Leroy Harris. Harris, I think, was somebody who he started in place of Dean Miller in the opener against Fresno State. There was a lot of excitement about him, even with the understanding that, well, he's a sophomore. He's coming from FCS. This could take some time to develop. Keenan Caldwell's kind of been a guy, I don't remember bringing him up at all during the spring, during the summer, and he has been terrific through 3 games. The depth on the defensive line broadly, has it maybe exceeded some of the coaching staff's expectations to get what they've gotten from Harris and Caldwell?
I think a little bit. Well, it's hard with Harris because, going back to camp, it was one of those where it became very evident early on that he was going to be a big-time player for KU. I think Keenan Caldwell is one that's really interesting. He's a guy that I think has really benefited from KU switching up its defensive looks at times, where he's playing sometimes as like a true nose guard. And if you remember the Les Miles system, right, the 3 down front that they wanted to run, well, that's what Keenan was recruited for. He was recruited to be the guy that sits in the middle and takes on double teams and is kind of your quote-unquote nose. And he's been deployed there now as KU kind of uses some of these 3D tackle, 5D lineman looks. So I think he's found kind of a little bit of a niche role there and has really performed well. You look at the, I think it was Fresno State, where he had really a huge, I think, first half in that game. And yeah, he definitely showed up against Missouri. He's so big and he's old now, where he's got kind of a, I'm not gonna say old man strength, but he's a grown adult, and I think that has really helped KU at the point of attack, and having someone that can do that when you got guys that are maybe more athletic and twitchy, like a Blake Harrell, like a DJ Withers, those 2 guys who then can get off the ball and really get up the field, and then you've got a guy anchoring things in the middle with Keenan. So yeah, I agree. I think Keenan's been a huge pleasant surprise, played really well. He's found a nice role, and yeah, man, Leroy Harris is going to be an NFL draft pick. Like, that's just what he's going to be, and it's going to be really fun to watch him develop over the next 2 years.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Become a VIP subscriber today. Gives you access to all of Michael's inside information, and it is very well worth it. Michael always delivers the goods and always delivers here on Jayhawk Weekly every Tuesday on 580 Sports Talk. Michael, always a pleasure. Enjoy the bye week. We'll do it again next week.
Awesome. Sounds great.
That is Michael Swain. We will step aside for a timeout. We'll come back. We will wrap up this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk after this. That's right. We are wrapping it up early here on 580 Sports Talk because we got Royals baseball coming up. 5 o'clock pregame, 5:40 first pitch from Cleveland as the Royals try to bounce back and keep their fading playoff hopes alive with a win over the Guardians tonight. Noah Cameron on the mound, Bobby Witt Jr. and Jonathan India back in the lineup. Witt returning after missing 3 games. India missed, I think, the last 10 or 11 and returns off of the injured list tonight. But before that, we got a final word. Spencer Dupuis, what do you got?
Final word for me, it's so tough for your team to make the postseason when now all of your opening day starters or the starters on your opening day rotation have all hit the IL at some point. And for the Royals with is it Waka?
Yes.
Waka going on and Lorenzen having gone on, and obviously we know what's happened. It's tough to make the playoffs. And I think for the Royals, after last night's getting no hit as late as they did, I mean, they were able to break it up and score some runs, right? But that was an abysmal game to watch. And I think for the Royals, if things don't start to take a turn here in the next couple of days, you might have to turn your focus towards 2026, unfortunately.
My final word, it has surprised me, and maybe this is just fan brain and not really anything that's indicative of what this Chiefs Kingdom fan base actually thinks of this Chiefs roster. Maybe this is just fan brain and girding yourself for possible disappointment. But I've been really surprised how many people out there I've seen or heard, or even we're in the YouTube chat on Monday talking about how they are mentally ready for the Chiefs to start 0-2 this year because the Eagles are coming to town on Sunday. I think that's a beatable Eagles team. I know they were pretty unbeatable last time the Chiefs saw them in Super Bowl 59. It's a different Chiefs team. They were one CeeDee Lamb catch away from a much more interesting ending to that season opening game on Thursday night. That does not strike me as a team that is particularly invincible. The Chiefs do have some issues. Some of them they're going to be able to play through, I think, right away. Some of them it may take time for the young safeties to be able to communicate and organize as well as they could when Justin Reed was at the back end of the defense. And certainly it's going to take time for the wide receiver core to be full and whole. Hopefully not as much time as it took. Well, I guess it never happened last season because Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown never played a game together. Hopefully that will be something that happens and Xavier Worthy will return to. But I think there is still enough reason to believe that this Chiefs team can right the ship, start better, defend their home turf. They can absolutely win on Sunday against the Eagles. We'll talk about it more on tomorrow's show. Tim Fitzgerald will join us. Royals are next. For Spencer, I'm Dan. This is 580 Sports Talk. Good night.